Welcome back to a bit Gamey and a new series of what I'm going to be calling MAKT, which stands for messing about with kit bashing and terrain. It's part of the Back to Wargaming series really, but I keep picking them up and then getting distracted by painting more figures, so I'm going to do it separately and see if I can actually get stuff finished. So the first three, there's a whole bunch of different things to do with different stuff. I mean, I may have shown this before, I can't remember. But I've got these bases for vehicles, which I decided was bigger than I needed for my 20mm figures. And so I thought, okay, what can I make out of this? And so I've got some of these sandbags from Model, I think it's called Model Scenery something. Anyway, they're a bit big for 20mm, but I don't care. I mean, the sandbags are a bit big. So I'm going to make something out of that, some kind of fortified terrain. So glue them on and faff around with flock and all the rest of it. Not quite sure, but so I can do that. I've got 6 of these vehicle bases, I think. Well, I'll do a couple to start. That's the first project. Second project is doing a bit more with bases. Because so far, I've been doing it like that, where you just put some glue down and some flock on, really for some colour. And that was a step up from my old way of doing it, which was just 40 years ago, which was just sticking them on cardboard from a cereal packet and painting it green. So that's one step up. But I wanted to start moving on to some of the better versions you see online, and it's not going to be, because I just to the base. I want to do a 50mm base because it fits in the box better, basically, and so that's not actually enough space to do anything really clever. But anyway, I'll do some little thing or something to try and make it look a bit prettier. So these command bases that I got ages back. So I'm not going to do much, but I'm just going to do something. So I say this little circular bit on there, that's just a base for war bases that I one of my experiments that the size that I don't particularly need, so I'm going to use them on the terrain bases from now. Anyway, so they're all glued on, and I think of some way of trying to make it as aesthetic as possible. It's going to be very limited, but it'll be something. And the third thing, the old kit bashing thing, is my favourite little stupid armed cards from early war. And kit bashing, the thing about the plastic figures is you can just take a rifleman, I think that's a standing rifleman, and just hack it to pieces and then try and paint it up and try and fit it into there. So so those are the 3 first projects on this MAKT series. Try and get those done. There's a whole bunch of these things, but this is just the first 3. Quick disclaimer: this isn't meant to be tutorials or anything, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just messing about. So if something works, it works by accident, and if it doesn't work, it won't work by accident either. So that's just that. Don't treat this as a tutorial. This is more just a diary entry for for whatever reason really. It's partly for my benefit and might be interesting to someone. Also there's a second reason. Later on, when I come to talking about basing units, I'll talk about floristic regions. It's FLORISTIC. It's basically climate zones, but divided by what kind of plants will grow in that region. Anyway, I came across this diagram years ago, and I thought it'd be quite an interesting thing to do. So, this is originally it was for the ancients. Also, a basing scheme based on these floristic regions, and the idea was desert would be for the deserty bits, obviously, south of this map. Then you've got Mediterranean, which is Mediterranean, obviously. Atlantic is the kind of climate zone along the Atlantic. Central Europe, Central Russia, Pontic, Mediterranean, Boreal, etc. Boreal I'm taking as being the kind of Nordic. And then I was going to have to say different basing materials for factions come from each of these particular regions.
particular regions. It'll become more obvious later on when I show the different basing materials I use for different places. One other factor is when I'm doing it, I treat boreals being much further south in the past, because this is the diagram for now. But as we know, there was an ice age, and it's been getting warmer gradually ever since. So it's like 24,000 years ago was, I think, the last glacial maximum. That's when it was very cold, and farming started about 10,000 years ago. So it's getting warm enough to do farming around the Mediterranean regions and into Mesopotamia about 10,000 years ago. So from 24,000 to 10,000, it must have gradually got warmer, and ever since, basically, more or less, with lots of wobbles. So basically, I'm sort of assuming that this boreal region that's up here now, in Scandinavia, was actually a lot lower back then. Who knows where? But I'm kind of treating it as being like Northern Europe as being this boreal region. Central Europe being from France eastwards to the Black Sea sort of thing. Steppe from the Black Sea eastwards. Atlantic being where it is now along the coast. The main difference of the Atlantic is it's the same climate but with much more rain. Because obviously being next to the Atlantic, it gets massive amounts of rain. So and then they divide it here between Mediterranean and sub-Mediterranean, whereas I just include that all together. So that gives me, I think it's 6. There's desert, Mediterranean, Atlantic, Central Europe, and boreal, and steppe. So those are the 6 kind of categories I use for basing. Well, this is at least in theory. In practice, I'll vary from that depending on what flock, etc. I've got available. But anyway, this might not make any sense at the moment, but when it comes to the basing things later, there's I've got an example from the deserty bit, an example from the Central European bit, an example from the boreal bit. I say this won't make any sense at all for now, but it might make sense later. So I'm probably making it worse trying to explain it, but just to one last stab, I'm kind of assuming in my version that the Arctic comes down to about that, further down. Because this is the modern version. So I'm sort of assuming it was colder before. So I'm doing it so it's like Arctic comes down that far. The boreal is more like that. So the Arctic down to there, boreal there, Central European there, sort of like going from the edge of the Atlantic to the steppe, and then so it's basically everything's moved down a chunk. That's my theory anyway. So that yellow bit is the steppe. That now green bit is the boreal. The purple bit is the Arctic further down. Atlantic more or less the same. So it's just the western edge of all these other regions, and the Mediterranean is as now more or less. And then there's deserty bits in North Africa and Mesopotamia. So those are the basing regions for my in theory: desert, Mediterranean, Central Europe, steppe, Atlantic, and boreal. So it probably doesn't make any sense to anyone, but that's what my basing scheme is going to be based on. So first step, get the bases all covered in some kind of base colour, brown in this case, because why not? I put one lot of sandbags on just to see if the paint sticks them on, and one I'll put on after.
Yeah, nothing else to say really. It's just that's step one. Paint them and stick them. And yes, now it reminds me. One of the things is like using these big thick acrylic for your bases. That I hadn't noticed before is when I first started doing bases, I used something which I think I got from MAKT. It's about using a filler as for putting on your bases, so it gets texture on it. But this stuff, because it's so thick, if you squeeze too much out of the pot, out of the tube, and you want to use it up, then it effectively gives you a. It's not a very controlled texture. It's just randomly splapped it on. But you can imagine that as being some muddy trench system that's all got totally cacked up. So anyway, that's, I don't know, it's not interesting to anyone. It's interesting to me that you use this thick acrylic stuff for your cheap painting your bases, and then whack it on a bit thick, and give you a texture as well. Do muddy field. So anyway, blah blah blah. That last comment is I'm going to use these as a kind of diary as I do it. So if I notice anything which might be useful for the future goes, then I'll make a note of that. So while they're drying, the next thing is that kind of round base that I used to stick on there to make that guy taller, is get some all-purpose filler, blah blah blah, and just put a little lip around the edge of that base so it doesn't stand out like that. It looks more like a bump in the terrain. So that's that. Just a bit of filler around the oops, can't see, around the base, cover it up a little bit, and bit of texture, whatever. So that dries. What's left? So all these little crew figures to paint them up, paint them up while these other bits are drying. Okay. So progress so far. See the sandbag emplacement. Number one. Number two. This if you do the painting really thick, I've discovered, it takes a long time to dry. So those big lumpy bits are still wet, which is something to bear in mind. The command bases. That's the one with the I did already. The one with a bit of filler. There's not going to be much room to do much with these ones because there's all the extra figures and such. But I'll whack some tufts and flock or whatever on it. Oh yeah, this one was. These are all Warlord ones. This one is the German. What's his name? Arminius. The other was. See, why did I get Nubians and Arminius? I do not know, but I did. Anyway, yeah, and this is Vercingetorix, and a standard guy. And Arminius with his two dogs. So they're all good on ready to do flocking and stuff. And then the last of the three got the crew painted up. Obviously very easy because it's little black uniforms and a bit of flesh and stuff. Not going to worry about doing any more than that. Got the first crew member in, the little driver. So yeah, that's the current state of play. So next update. One thing I noticed, because these because when you use the really thick acrylic paint, it takes a long time to dry. I think in future I'm going to do it. Maybe do a first coat that's thin, so it dries quick, so you can do the next steps. And then you can whack more on later for the texture aspect once the rest of it's done. So that's them. The 3 command bases I bought ages back. Getting there. They're different colour flocks. The thing on the flocks is ages ago I got a whole load of these little trays. I think they're from Gale Force. Not entirely sure. You know, different trays, you know, different stuff in them, brown, black, this kind of reddish one, this kind of gritty one. So anyway, I bought them on a whim. I had no idea what I was going to do with them. And so yeah, so this is to follow on these. The idea I had was have different ones for different geographical regions. So for example, in Europe it's sort of split up into different kind of climate zones. There's the Mediterranean, what's called the Atlantic, which is along the Atlantic coast. Central Europe, which is like more like France, and I think it's called Nordic for the northern one, like Germany and Scandinavia. And so, oh yeah, no, and obviously desert for places like Nubia. So the idea I had was, when I got around to it, was having a desert version of the base, a Mediterranean version, which I don't have here. This is a Central European version with the summer grass, and then I was going to have for the Germanic Scandinavians have this sort of, I mean, I don't know if they call it forest cover, but I'm going for stuff that's kind of, you could say was forest cover. If you imagine like conifer forests and stuff, where it's all the ground litter. If you ever walked in a place like that, you see this is also well, at least my memory of it a long time ago, it's brownish litter on the quite dark, basically because the trees go close together, and then it's got all these pine cones and that in the base. So that was kind of my idea. It hasn't stuck completely, but it's generally working on that, as and when I remind myself. So yeah, so that's the idea, is to make them kind of colour coded, the different regions. Parched grass for Mediterranean was that one. Summer grass for the centre. Spring grass for the Atlantic, and sort of dark forest for the Germanic. So that's the plan. So that's the next stage. Put the flock on. What goes? I don't know what to do next. There's not enough room to do anything fancy clever, but I'll probably wax some lichen or lichen on them. I don't know how you pronounce it, if it's lichen or lichen. I pronounce it lichen, but whatever. So that's the next stage of them done. I've got some of the little figures in my favourite armoured cars. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They were originally figures from these plastic Caesar figures I got ages ago, where you just take a figure and cut it down. So you take a figure like that, and you just cut the weapon off and cut the legs off. That's made my little gunners. But I should have kept the legs, because I've got one more figure to do. Can you see that? I don't know. That basically goes in the command vehicle. Oops. And he's too short. So whatever. So I should have kept the figure I cut down and include the legs onto that one. And for the commander. So I've got to do that next. Well, I've got to think of what to do next. Do I want to cut up another figure and just give him legs? I don't know. We shall see. So anyway, I need to put that commander in. And that's that done. Still waiting for that blooming other ones to dry. And these ones, either leave them alone, like that one, or just whack a bit of lichen or something, or a tuft onto those two, just to paint this gravelly stuff, sandy colour, and add some lichen or something to the other two. So that's going well, apart from the sandbag thing. Just realised that was the the wrong one for the Germanic base. I've got this foliage brown leaves. So that's what that was meant to be. Doesn't matter because he's a general, so he can be special. But yeah, that was that. And the second thing was on these various terrain videos I've watched, he mentions getting a little spray to seal up the flock on the base. So I used an old, an almost dead bottle of glue, and I'll fill that with water and spray, or try to spray all these bases, see if it will keep everything stuck down. So sandbags painted, I leave to dry. My favourite little vehicles with the oops. Now we've added commander. I think the flesh is maybe a bit too bright now, so it sticks out a bit. So we'll darken that down. And the 3 command bases soaked with that watery glue. Apparently it's meant to be about 80% water and 20% glue or something like that, or 90 and 10. So I don't know how long it's going to take to dry, but I'll leave it for a long time just to make sure. So, and I'll do the lichen. So yeah, so just darken the flesh on those and wait for that for the sandbag things to dry. So a little bit of soft tone on the flesh, nudged it down just a little bit. It's good. And now my attempt at clever basing. So I don't know what I'm doing, so don't take any of this as a tutorial or anything. But yeah, so it's a bit of flock, a tuft, and some lichen, currently wet from being sprayed with diluted glue. That's why, as I say, the original, my plan for Ancients at least, was so geographic bases and Central Europe, like sort of France and going eastwards from France, and that kind of latitude basically. It's going to be the green and bushy. Germany, this northern part, it's just more kind of forest cover type deal, dark red and brown and all that. And this Mediterranean is missing, and desert. It says, as we all know, there's lots of bits of cork lying around on the ground, and giant hyenas. If you didn't know that, then you don't research it, but it's true. No, it's not. But anyway, yeah. So bits of cork. I don't know what to do with deserts really. I need to look at other people's videos and their figures and that, and see if I get any ideas. I mean, that's okay. It's Iraqi sand on top of some kind of grit type stuff with little bits of other. Because I've got to say, I've got these pots, various kinds of I don't know what you call it, but stuff you put on bases, and just scattering in little bits of it about on glue. So that's the latest version of desert base, northern forest base, and Central European base. So I say, not brilliant, but I'm rather pleased with them. They're quite. I don't know if I'll do it on everything, just on the command bases. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So they're basically done now. Or just drying. And then on the slow thing, because of the needing them to dry, they've got the sandbag emplacement, and I'm just doing a bit of filler on the front. I'll paint that sort of earth and then flock the front. It's kind of ground cover, and then to know what I'll do on the back part, I might just leave it as kind of muddy mess, like with say one or more of these things, a little bit of glue here and there, and then scatter scatter little bits of those just to change them, you know, just to what's the word, mix the colours up a bit. Anyway, so far so good. So last two bits. A bit of painting on the sandbags, a bit of filler on the front there. Going to flock that now. Decided afterwards to do some filler on the inside as well. I should have done all at once, but I didn't. Never mind. So got to paint that and flock those two bits. That's the next step. So getting to the end, near the end. Bit of filler front and back, and a bit of flock. A few little patchy bits on the mud. Quite pleased. I mean, it's completely unrealistic because those sandbags are gigantic for 20mm figures, but still, I don't care. I just pretend, and it'll be good. If I ever do 28mm figures, they'll work for that as well. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with them. What's next? The last thing to do is just these gaps where the different bits of. I'll try and fill them up with lichen or something. Lichen, literally. Any thoughts? The only thoughts is think about, you know, mixing up flock. So I used a little bit of the darker one on this, and thinking in future to maybe mix some of it up so it's a bit more multicoloured. Other than that, and you know, it taking ages to bloody dry because I put it on too thick initially. Those are the only two things to note, I'd say. So yeah, so nearly the end of this first episode of MAKT. Click, and there we go. Final touch. Bit of lichen on the front, covering up a gap and a tuft or something. So there you are. I'm rather pleased with that. I say it's yeah, whatever, blah blah blah. Various things wrong with it, but I don't care. It's rather good, like that. So yeah, so that's the first episode of MAKT, otherwise known as messing about with kit bashing and terrain. So there's those three done. The what's it's done, and the command base is done. I'm tempted to get some extra figures now for the command bases, because in terms of what I call them, floristic regions, which are you know, a climate type zone. So you know, desert, and then there'd be desert. Then there should be Mediterranean. And then there should be Atlantic. And then finally, well, not finally, then Central Europe, Northern Europe, and one on the end. So, yeah, so there should be two in between them, Atlantic and Mediterranean, between desert and Central Europe, and that one's Northern Europe, and there should be another one on the end for steppe, and that would end up being Russia later on in Napoleonic, etc. So I'm tempted to do that at some point. Just get some kind of Greek general for Mediterranean, British for Atlantic, and Russian or steppe raiders of some kind for the sixth one. So yeah, so that's all rather pleasing. Doing that, I'm going to do this again sometime. The MAKT thing. I've picked 3 little trainish kit bashing type projects and just do a little diary. Really, it's not in any way a tutorial, because I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. But just a little diary thing, and interesting for me to look back on. What did I learn? Can't remember. The main thing I learned is just don't put stuff on too thick, so it doesn't take too long to dry. I think that's basically it. Yeah, I think that's it. Okie doke, to a bit.